Okay, 7:02. I don't know if this is on, but it's 7:02. We'll start the meeting now. I'm stepping in to just open it up. We have Dave Johnson, Bob Words is on Zoom, and I think Steve is on Zoom also, and myself. So we have a quorum for the meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. We have a roll call vote. Like I said, Bob, Steve, Dave, Brian. I think Nikki's going to join us later. All right, so I'll open it up to budget presentations / public hearing. Board of Education proposal, Kathleen Herbert and Melinda Smith, Superintendent of Schools. So you're up.
Good evening. There's a lot happening this evening, so I'm happy to see as many of you that are here. First and most importantly, I want to wish our boys basketball team the best of luck tonight as they take on Summers in the state CIAC tournament. Go Tigers!
Okay.
I want to welcome the Board of Finance, the Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, school administrators, staff, and the citizens of Thompson who are in attendance or watching on YouTube tonight. I especially want to thank the Board of Finance members who attended the Board of Education budget workshops. You got a firsthand look at how the budget process works once it reaches the Board of Education level. I'm going to start off the presentation tonight, but I will be followed later by Superintendent Smith, our Finance Director, Mr. William Steglitz, and my fellow board member, Mr. Justin Young. Slide 2. This slide lists the current members of the Board of Education, but the most important takeaway from this slide is Connecticut Regulation Section 10-220, which specifies the duties of the Board of Education and thereby the requirements of funding from citizens of a town. It states that the Board of Education shall provide an appropriate learning environment for all its students. This includes instructional books, supplies, materials, equipment, staffing, facilities, and technology. 2, provide equitable allocation of resources among its schools. 3, provide proper maintenance of facilities. You did a walkthrough, some of you did the walkthrough of our facilities earlier this evening. And 4, provide a safe school setting. Every year, the Board of Education presents to the Board of Finance a budget that meets the requirements of this law, nothing more, nothing less. But each year, with the reductions in our requests, we often must find places to adjust these needs to the detriment of one or more of a particular school or segment of our student population. Superintendent Smith will speak about this later in the presentation. Slide 3, please. This is a current list of our administration and department heads. I want to bring your attention to a few features on this slide. First, I'd like to bring your attention to Ms. Granato. She's listed in 2 places. She's listed under Turtle Lot Memorial High School as interim principal and Thompson Middle School as principal, which is her primary position. She's currently wearing 2 hats. Again, if you look at the right side of the slide, you will see Dr. Jones. He's listed as Director of Pupil Services, but he also wears 2 hats. He is assisting with discipline at Turtle Lot Memorial High School. This is typically the duty of an assistant principal. We have none. Other examples of persons doing multiple duties include Mr. William Birch, our Facilities Director. He is also a consultant to the town's building committee, the Turtle Lot Trust, and he works with the town on fuel and energy contracts. Mrs. Heather Burns, our technology director, also provides services to the town. Mr. William Steglitz and Ms. Gianmarinaro, their positions are shared with the town. This slide shows that we are at a bare bones level of admin. But I do want you to know that the FY 2025 budget does include money for a full-time principal at Turtle Rock Memorial High School. Slide 4, please. Vision and mission statement. You have seen this slide many times before in prior years. This is the vision statement and the mission statement of the Thompson School District. These statements align with a portrait of a graduate. Over the past several years, we have taken concrete steps towards achieving our vision through improved test scores and implementation of career pathways. Slide 5. These are the pillars upon which we base the educational foundation of our students. A Turtle Rock graduate will be independent, knowledgeable, and community connected. These are the qualities of each graduate of the Thompson Public Schools should possess. These attributes were agreed upon through a community effort from volunteers coming from the school, town government, alumni, and ordinary citizens. Many of you may have taken part in these workshops. Slide 6. Slide 6 further breaks down the components that make up the pillars of Portrait of a Graduate. Slide 7. Townwide assets. A thriving school improves property value. For many in Thompson, their most valuable asset is their home. Investing in our town school is an investment in your home's future value. There may come a time when in later life you will want to downsize or move to warmer climes. Likely at that time, your mortgage will be paid off. This is when you will realize the full value of your investment. Typically, buyers and businesses look at school ratings when buying or establishing themselves in a town. Thompson Public Schools is the largest employer in town. Thompson Public School employs about 200 people. 50% or 100 of them live in the town, supporting local businesses and paying taxes. District-wide programs help a community thrive. Athletic programs bring about community spirit and camaraderie. Extracurricular activities provide a place for kids to go after school. They keep kids engaged in their interest. Community service projects. Kids learn that giving back to their community is important and fulfilling. It gives them a sense of self-worth and purpose. PTO-sponsored events. Our schools have a very active PTO organization. They raise money for field trips and currently are raising money for the ADA playground at Mary R. Fisher Elementary School. Art, music, and theater programs. Not only do these programs bring the community together at recitals and public programs, but they give kids and our children, a cultural background essential to a well-rounded education. Don't forget to get your tickets to this year's production of Peter Pan, being presented March 22nd and 23rd. Tickets are available online. In closing, the school is the heart of any town. It provides a valuable resource for its citizens and should be a prized asset fully supported by all. Slide 8. In the spirit of one town, one community, Thompson has come a long way over the past several years in improving the collaboration between town and school. These are just some of the examples of how the town and the school benefit from joining forces. On the town side and the schools, we now share a finance director and an HR director, reducing costs. The school provides technology support to the town, eliminating their need for outside consultants. We share security services, keeping the school safe and the town buildings secure. The school shares its space with the town's recreation department for their after-school programs and summer programs. The town joins with the school for fuel, insurance, and health insurance contracts to reduce the town's cost. On the school side, we receive services from the town's DPW. They supply sand and update us on road conditions and other support services as needed and or as requested. DATCO buses lease land at the town garage, so the buses are close by, which is especially important should there be an emergency. Also, the town receives rental revenue. These are just a few examples of town and school collaboration. Because of this collaboration, both the town and the school win, allowing for efficient operation and cost savings. Again, unity in the community. Slide 9. This slide is a historical depiction of our budgets for the last 7 years and the current budget's requests. Slide 9 shows percentage change from the prior year's budget compared to the rate of inflation. Up until this current year's budget, the percentage change in the Board of Education budget was well below the inflation rate. And even for this year, it is even with the estimated inflation rate. For FY 2025, we are above the estimated year-end inflation rate, but keep in mind that we negotiated several union contracts earlier in the year when inflation was still at a high point. Mr. Steglitz will address this later in the presentation. The slide also shows the number of referendums it took to pass the budget. The estimated cost of a referendum is between $8,000 to $10,000. Next slide. Slide 10 shows the actual dollars our budget request was reduced. The largest reductions took place in FY 2021, when there was no referendum due to COVID, and FY 2024, when we were out of COVID restrictions and at the time of what was referred to as a fiscal cliff. That is, after COVID funds had been expended. These were the times that the schools and the students needed the money the most. I am now going to turn the presentation over to Superintendent Smith, who is going to explain to you the impact that last year's budget request reduction had on the Thompson School District. But before I do, I would like to read an excerpt from a letter we received from Rachel LaFleur Johnston, class of 75. She recently attended a Northeast Connecticut Chamber of Commerce meeting with Congressman Joe Courtney. Congressman Courtney spoke about jobs in Northeast Connecticut, especially at Electric Boat, who has just set their all-time record of hiring. And as a side note, he hailed Thompson's, quote, amazing superintendent, Melinda Smith, unquote, quote, for her development of career pathway programs. Later in the Q&A portion segment of the meeting, Mr. Kyle Kramer of Day Kimball Hospital also echoed this sentiment for our successful CNA program. So Thompson is being noticed. We are living up to our slogan, a small school with big opportunities. And having said this, I will turn this presentation over to our amazing Superintendent Smith.
Thank you, Chairman Herbert, for those kind words, and Rachel Johnston out there. Next slide. Oops, wait, I have a new clicker, so. Okay, so first of all, the members of the Board of Education and myself certainly want to thank the taxpayers in Thompson for the increase in our budget for this fiscal year. However, that request, our budget of this year did fall short, and we had to really dig deep into staffing positions. And I just want to go over the impact that that has actually had directly on students in our schools. We had to reduce 5 paraeducators, and 2 of those paraeducators were in our kindergarten classrooms. We have students entering kindergarten that don't have fully developed self-help skills. And so the teachers in those classrooms not only are managing their students, but when a child has to go to the bathroom and be changed because they've had an accident, it falls on the classroom teacher because there isn't a paraprofessional in that classroom. We have 2 paraprofessionals, but 4 kindergarten classrooms, so they share paraprofessionals. That's having a significant impact on teacher morale for sure, but even for students so that they're not being attended to quickly. So it's playing out in the classrooms in a very negative way. We're also starting to see the reduction in those paraprofessionals impacting student achievement scores. The data this year that we're sharing with the state next week on our goals around school-wide improvement, we're starting to fall short in kindergarten, and we attribute that to the lack of paraprofessionals in that classroom. We had to reduce a reading teacher at the middle school, and because of that, there are 30 students who are reading 2 years or more below grade level that are currently not being serviced in reading. That position is critical. Unfortunately, we had no choice. We had to make decisions around what positions to cut. So currently now, those students are not being serviced. Our secretary, we had 1.5 secretaries at the middle school. We have our daily attendance that needs to be collected quickly at the beginning of the day so that we can notify parents that their children are absent from schools if they haven't called us in. And that is starting to take more time because there's only one person doing those duties. We don't have an evening custodian. We reduced one of those. Obviously, the other custodians had to take that work on, and that all impacts the cleanliness of the building. Cafeteria workers, we had to reduce all of our part-time cafeteria workers, and that is taking a big impact on our cafeteria staff. Next slide, the loss of general education summer school. In the past, we always had summer school to support reading and mathematics. Those programs are gone. We will not be running summer programs for general education students who are still struggling. The special education early extended school year program will continue to run because that is a requirement of a student's IEP. However, for those students that are struggling in reading and math, they will no longer have on-site summer work. The loss of purchasing Chromebooks and laptops for students. We didn't purchase any new hardware this year, and a lot of the laptops that we received funding for through grants during the COVID time are now aging out, and they're starting to need repairs. And this year, we're just hanging on with the equipment we have. In the new budget, we do address a cycle of new Chromebooks so that we can put newer equipment into the rotation. Loss of a part-time technology technician, we cut that position this year as well. That position was mainly to address student Chromebook needs when they needed to be repaired. We haven't bought library books in 2 budget cycles, so the books that are in our libraries are the same books they were when we came out of COVID. And we do not sponsor, the Board of Education's budget does not sponsor field trips. If our students are going on field trips, that's because our wonderful parents of the PTO have raised funds to allow for those trips to happen. Sometimes we've received grants from Mystic. We do receive a Mystic grant so that the 4th grade can go to Mystic Aquarium. Otherwise, the parents are paying for those trips, and quite frankly, we've had to cut those back because even our own families can't afford the cost of the bus and then the entrance into some of the museums and plays that we'd like to take our children to. Field trips have a significant learning impact, and if, when you were in school, think back to some of the trips that you went on with your friends and your teachers, and those memories and that learning was so essential. Unfortunately, we are not going out very often unless we can find some grant money or our wonderful PTO is able to fund those. So I want to talk a little bit about the 2025 budget, where we got to for this presentation, what the process is like. The process for us starts at about the end of October. We develop a calendar for budget workshops with the Board of Education. At that time, budget sheets are sent out to the school and all the teachers, and they start to fill in their requests. We ask that their requests come back by the beginning of December. The building principal has already reviewed all of those requests, and whatever the building principal puts forward to my level is what we review at central office. Around January, we hold individual meetings at the beginning of January, individual meetings with each principal. I've already gone through the budget with Mr. Steglitz, and we decide and have a conversation around the requests that are made. At that point, we make our own reductions. We know that the community can only afford the essentials that we need. And so our things critical to have, we keep those in the budget. For those things that are not critical, we remove them there. And then we present the budget to the Board of Education. The Board of Education goes through a series of workshops. So much time is spent line by line, and they make decisions on reductions. And this year they did, and Mr. Steglitz will talk about what those numbers are. And then we turn it over to the town. And then from there are even more reductions. And so the original budget, where it starts out, which isn't a wish list, because people in our community, the people that work here, half of them live here, they know that they're asking for things that they really truly believe will enhance the delivery of instruction and align to the curriculum. And so they're not asking for things that are on a wish list, but we have to make hard decisions at the district level, and then the Board of Education has to make decisions at their level before this is ever turned over to the Board of Finance. So in this budget, there's some highlights. In special education, we put increase in costs in tuition, transportation, and contracted services. But that special education budget that we put forward for FY25 is maintaining the budget that's currently in place. The same with health. And looking at district-wide contingency. Last year, for this fiscal year, we had put in a $30,000 contingency in the budget. There is nothing in this current budget for contingency. We did not put any money in this budget to repair the old playground at Mary R. Fisher. The PTO at Mary R. Fisher has been working diligently to raise money, and they really have raised, I think, over $150,000 for a new ADA compliant playground. The current structure that is there, since there is no money to fix it, which is a cost of about $50,000, it is the goal of myself and Mr. Birch is to have that structure removed. Right now it's a hazard because it does need to be upgraded. The transportation costs, bus transportation by our DADCO contract increased this year by 5%. Just to remind everyone that last year, the first year of the new contract, there was no increase with our DADCO budget. Now for the next 4 years, you will see a 5% increase over the next 4 years. Our athletic program, which are essential to the social emotional health of our children. We've made no reductions in athletics. We firmly believe that we need to have a strong athletic program, both at the middle school and the high school level, in order to keep our students healthy and safe. As far as technology, we did put a cycle of Chromebook upgrades. And then as far as the curriculum budget, we're just maintaining the professional development dollars that we have and the resources for curriculum that are currently in place. I'm going to turn this section of the presentation over to William Steglitz, our finance director.
Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you as we enter what I estimate to be about the final third of the budget process. That's right, the final third. As Melinda just mentioned, this starts in November, and a tremendous amount of work has gotten us here. One thing I would like to emphasize, based on Melinda's stacked bar chart that was just on the screen, the original request that came in from the Board of Ed, from the teachers and the administrators within the school system, was actually for a $2.1 million increase to this year's budget. The work that went on after those initial requests trimmed us down to an $885,000 increase. There is a tremendous amount of rigor that this budget is subjected to as it is developed throughout the year. Melinda's correct, this is not a wish list. So the board has asked me to break down the main budget drivers. As Chairman Herbert mentioned, we had recently renegotiated several union contracts. They show up in the top section of this slide. The teachers, the custodial maintenance, and the administrators, and the paraeducators also. What you're seeing there with the paraeducators, you might notice that it's a pretty significant amount of money. The needs of the students driven by IEPs requires the presence of paraeducators in the classroom, and that's really what's driving that significant increase. So total contractual salary increases in this budget are $664,000. When we started the budget process, we had an anticipated healthcare increase of 5%. Healthcare is also impacted by coverage changes and new employees. So the combination of those two amounts brings us to $268,000 in the healthcare line. Melinda just mentioned the transportation increase with DATCO. Once again, that follows a year when we had no increase in transportation. Non-contractual salary increases, that $41,000 represents the raises for approximately 10 employees that don't fall into any of the union contracts that we mentioned above. Utilities, electric, water, and sewer, unfortunately, typically go up every year. Electric was helped a little bit this year. Bill Birch helped us negotiate a joint contract with the town and the school combined. So that helped a bit, but unfortunately, there's upward pressure on those prices. So another $30,000 there. The addition of the culinary program did cost the district about $22,000. The next line, keep in mind, this budget is approximately 400 lines long. So there are quite a number of relatively small increases that add up to that $214,000. I would have needed 4 or 5 slides to catch all of those, so I boiled them into one number. So that brings us to total budget additions of $1.3 million. But going back to my earlier point about the rigor that this budget has been subjected to, we also took a look at our existing lines from prior year budgets, and we reduced some of those lines to a total of $442,000, and those cuts touch just about every budget. We looked through pupil services, we looked everywhere, we looked through district-wide. Some of our savings there from fuel oil and diesel contracts show up in that line also. Another area where the school and the town worked hand in hand to secure some pretty good pricing for next year. So when you boil down all those drivers, the BOE budget for this year is an $885,000 or roughly 4.2% increase over last year's budget. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to Dr. Jones.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Okay, let's see if I can get this clicker to go. Here we go. All right, so my first slide, I tried to give an overview of the number of staff by building and what that looks like to run the department. So Miriam Fisher, currently 10 teachers, 1 social worker, an SLP paraprofessional, 14 paraprofessionals, and that would be to work with 97 students with IEPs. At the middle school, 3 special education teachers, a half-time speech pathologist, a half-time school psychologist, 3 paraprofessionals, and that would be for 49 students with IEPs. At Turtle Lot Memorial High School, 3 special education teachers, a half-time speech pathologist, half-time school psych, social worker, a student support specialist, 4 paraprofessionals, 1 CNA, and 42 students with IEPs. And with all that being said, we utilize 1 bus for special education for the 3 school buildings. Our in-school Bradley Windham County program, the elementary program has Thompson, Killingly, and Putnam students. The middle school has Thompson, Stafford, Killingly, and Plainfield students. The high school has Thompson, Brooklyn, Killingly, Woodstock, and Sterling students for a total of 23 students. And the good news with that is there is 0 transportation associated with the Bradley School Windham County program. Our out-of-district number at the time of this report was for 20 students. Of the 20 students, 8 of them are in the Bradley School Windham County program on site here in Thompson. In order to transport the other remaining students, we're currently still using 5 vehicles to do so, and that's for 7 off-site locations. In terms of 504 plans, Mary R. Fisher, we have 22. The middle school, we have 26. The high school, we have 32, for a total of 80 504 plans. The next section of this slide, so to the left, if we did not have the Bradley School Windham County program, so that program has been in exception since 2019. So I go by just looking at from 2019, if you look at the bottom part of that slide, in 2019, we had 8 students in the program. The next year we had 12, following year 14, and again 14 and 8. That's a total of 56 students. If those 56 students did not have access to the Bradley School Windham County program, we would need transportation. The transportation numbers that I utilize based on average just over the course of the years is for $63,000 per vehicle. So when you take that into account, that's a positive outcome of $2,016,000 that the district saved in terms of transportation. The tuition amount would have been $4,200,000. By having the Bradley School Windham County program here on site in Thompson Public Schools, that ranges from $1,960,000 to roughly $2,240,000. When you put all that together, the district over those 5 years, for approximately 56 students, the district has a positive outcome of $4,256,000 over those 5 years by having this on-site out-of-district placement school. Okay. Next slide. In terms of special education cost that exceeds the school budget. So when you look at special education and the number of students that we currently have identified, we're looking at $4.8 million of the total operating cost. Mary R. Fisher, with 380 students in their building, is operating at $3.6 million. The middle school with 264 students operating at $3.2 million, and the high school with 211 students operating at $2.9 million. And then lastly, When you look at the per pupil expenditure, looking at Thompson, Putnam, and Killingly, you can see a disparity in the per pupil expenditure. That's largely in part due to the Bradley School Windham County program. We're paying less per student. That's why that number is lower. So if you simply take the 24 students, multiply that by the per pupil expenditure, you get that total number of the 1.253 million, and so on and so forth with Putnam and Killingly. And again, our per pupil expenditure is a bit lower than Putnam and Killingly. And again, that's in large part due to the Bradley program that we have here on site. Okay. Next up, I'd like to call up Mr. Justin Young.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. Board of Finance members, I appreciate your time. I think it's important for us as a town to realize what part of our contribution as taxpayers goes into this school budget. And if you look at the chart up on the screen right now, 64% of the school's budget is funded right out of the Thompson taxpayers' pockets. 35%, the 7.534 million, comes from the state. And that number does not move regardless of the amount of students we have, regardless of the amount of programs, regardless of the amount of efficiencies we put in to our programs, that number doesn't change. And then what's really important on this slide, and it really jumps out at you, is the special education excess cost. In past budget seasons, we've gone through it. When a special education student exceeds a certain dollar amount, the state gives us a percentage of that money back. This year, that money was cut because there were so many towns that had put in for extra money. And that money that comes back to our school for all of those special education students is only around $150,000. One of the things that we have talked about as a board, one of the things that we want to try to push with the state, and I think it's important for our Board of Finance members and our townspeople to understand, is if the state did pick up all of special education, that goes back to the previous slide, that $4.8 million would come out of our budget. So that's important for everybody to remember here. Next slide, the contractually obligated expenses. This is a really important slide, and Superintendent Smith kind of referenced where, when we cut the budget, where some of that money comes out of. And I think this is really, this one being really important. 85% of our budget we cannot touch. That's what we need to operate the building. That's what we need to make sure that we legally meet the obligations of every single student in this school. That's what we need to pay our teachers, to keep the lights on. The 15% of this budget is not discretionary. The 15% of this budget that's in that red pie slice is what keeps our students and our teachers happy, content, giving them that extra leg up, giving them the resources that they need to become good citizens and hopefully come back to our town and contribute to it in the future. It gives us the ability to keep our facility upgraded. It gives us the ability to have our summer school programs and to have our athletic programs in town. The regional certified teacher salary slide, if you look at where Thompson sits on it, it's another eye-opening slide. From a bachelor's step 2 and a master's step 2, thinking about all the education that all the time, effort, and energy that these teachers have put into their education so that they can educate our children and our future citizens to be one of the lowest paid teachers in the region is pretty stark. And when we go to the next slide, which is, and I'm buzzing through these pretty quickly because I don't want anybody falling asleep on me. The last slide really brings it into perspective. It puts all of the teachers in our region, or all of the towns in our region, it puts our teachers where they sit in that. So teachers in the room, close your eyes. We don't want you to see that you can go somewhere else and get more money, but this is where we are. And we have some fantastic educators in this facility. We have some fantastic administration. So I really hope this year that we look at the numbers and people can understand that this budget has gone through every possible cut it can, and that we need to be doing for our students what we would do in our own homes and make sure that our students are fully educated. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Superintendent Smith.
So people often ask where we're at with our grant allocations. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about our federal grants and our competitive grants. We do receive grant funding for federal grants under these title grants. Under Title III, those are dollars to support our English language learners. All of these federal grants have very specific grant requirements. We're given an allocation that's calculated at the state level. It's based on poverty and a lot of other variables. However, the allocations that we get are listed above. So Title III, that supports English language learners. We get some money through Title IV. That's basically to support a healthy lifestyle. This year, we were able to use the Title IV dollars to pay the benefits of the salary of one of our other grant-funded positions. We didn't have enough to hire someone and pay for the benefits, but yet the state did approve us to use that $10,000 toward that person's benefits. In Perkins, that's been funding the equipment for our career pathways. IDEA 619 funds a salary of one of our preschool special educators. Title II is professional development dollars that we get, and it's restricted to professional growth with our teachers. That money over the past 2 years has gone specifically to get our elementary teachers and middle school teachers certified in Orton Gillingham, which is an alternative reading strategy and program. Title I is a reading program. We have our reading specialists and our Title I coordinator stipend and family engagement activities that comes out of that grant. And then IDEA 611, it partially funds some of our special educators. So all of those dollars are spoken for ahead of time and very restricted. And many of those dollars are offsetting the Board of Education's budget because we have salaries on those grants. What's more difficult to get are these competitive grants. And so the competitive grants are obviously just that. A grant application comes out, we have to program for it, we submit it, and then we wait to hear whether or not the scores that we received on our grant was awarded. So every time there's a grant that comes out, we are pretty aggressive in going after those dollars. Even small ones like the Mohegan Sun grant so that we can get some professional development for our teachers. It's a small grant of $500. However, that is an opportunity for professional learning that our teachers wouldn't have otherwise. When we look at for the Arts for Learning, we received $5,000 and brought 2 cultural programs into the district. The more recent one during Chinese New Year celebration from the New York Chinese Cultural Center. The Voice for Change was a student-driven grant. They had to write a grant and actually compete for it. And that grant funded a after-school trainer for the last couple of years in the weight room, and then all new weight equipment. The weight equipment was so bad that when the students used the weight equipment in that room and they put it away, their hands were full of rust. That equipment has all been upgraded and changed, and it's used quite a lot by our athletes and other students that want to live a healthy lifestyle. Donors Choose, just most recently, the state released $4 million through the Donors Choose program, and teachers had to apply for individual grants. Well, our teachers took advantage of that, and we received in this district $26,000 of that $4 million across the state. Kudos to our teachers for doing that work. Right to Read, we've received 2 Right to Read grants, one in the amount of $39,000 and the other in the amount of $115,000. Those grants are directly aligned to the right to read and the science of reading. The state has mandated certain reading programs that the district uses. We were very fortunate here in Thompson. We use the Wonders Reading Program. However, the one that the state approved was the 2020 version, and we had the 2017 version, so we had to upgrade. We just received a right to grant from Electric Boat. We haven't received the dollars yet, but we're in the process of going through that now. That's $94,000 that's going to be added to an Alliance grant and a Perkins grant to put in 5 welding booths so that our students will be trained to get positions at Electric Boat right after graduation. So that's an amazing grant. We have a school readiness grant for our preschool slots, and it funds a preschool teacher. And then we also received this year a school mental health specialist, which funds a BCBA at the high school, and it also funds the new social worker at Mary R. Fisher. And that's a 3-year grant, so we're very excited about that. And then the high dosage tutoring grant that's providing on-site tutoring for students in grades 6 through 9. And it's an outside tutoring service that comes into the schools to provide that direct instruction to supplement the learning because of the COVID gap and other reasons that students are lagging behind in mathematics. So when you look at the work that my team, our team has done this school year, $1 million of competitive grants we received, and that directly impacts teaching and learning of our students. And I couldn't be prouder of the team for doing all that hard work. And so the next slide is just to give everybody an idea, and I'm not going to read every box there, and there's a copy of this on the table outside, but we started to look at a 5-year capital plan. And this year, I know that the lockers were removed at the Board of Selectmen level, but those of you that went on the tour, you can see the condition of the lockers. We will have 1 more year next summer to upgrade those lockers before we have our full accreditation visit from NEASC. We had a 2-day preliminary collaborative visit this week. It was a favorable visit. However, there were items that they feel the district needs to address, and a full report will be released probably by July 1st. And I certainly will share that with the community, but I am certain that there are going to be things in that report around the capital improvements that need to be made at the high school, and I know the lockers are going to be one of them. And then just looking down each list, we tried to plan ahead of the things that we recognize need to be repaired. That is barring any, water heaters blowing up or boilers shutting down on us. But these are the things that we know we're trying to plan for over 5 years. And then the final slide is a really sincere thank you to the Board of Education. March is School Board Appreciation Month, and I can't thank our 9-member team of putting together the best budget to meet the needs of our students for FY25. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, because it's a public hearing, if there's some comments, I'll first open up to the board members if they have any questions at this time. Well, the time to ask, and then we'll ask the citizens if they have any questions that they want to just ask or talk to the superintendent or the staff about. Dave, anything at this time? No? Yeah.
I just have one question. The Bradley School, what are the requirements to keep that running? Like, is that your position? What are the requirements we have to have in Thompson to keep Bradley open? Is it, okay. Okay. Do you know what that number is? No, how many we need?
Rob, Steve, anything?
No, nothing. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Okay. Citizens, anybody have a question? Again, because the agenda doesn't say citizens' comments, but this is a public hearing, so I've been told by the First Selectman's office that we can open it up. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask at this time before we move on to the, to Amy and the Selectmen? Yes. Could you state your name and where do you live, please?
My name is Francis McGarry. I reside at 225 Chase Road in Thompson. Question for Mr. Steglitz, if I may. Steglitz at 4.3%, bottom line increase seems quite reasonable. Do we have any idea the impact on the millage that will be involved?
So $885,000 is just over, slightly over 1 million.
All right, anybody else? All right, if not, I'll ask our first select person, Amy St. Ange, to, if you want to come up to the podium and start off on the general budget.
While we're waiting for the slides to come up, I want to thank the Board of Finance for allowing us this opportunity to present to you this evening. And I also want to give a shout out to Bryce Pratt for setting all of this up for us, all this technology, him as well as the entire school/town IT department. We really appreciate all the work you do. The good news is we only have 4 slides. And there were handouts. So if for some reason this doesn't work, if everybody grabs a handout, I'll be able to review it with you. Old school.
Just a question, real quick before you start, Amy. Are your 4 slides up in the front?
Yes.
Okay, let me, I'll grab some, okay, yeah. Tom?
We got him, Justin. Yeah.
What I call him. He calls me Bob.
All right, let's get rolling. As you can see, our projected general town revenue is just over $2 million. General town expenses coming in at $7.4 million. Debt service, $1.6 million roughly. Capital requests this year are at $1.268 million. So total expenditures proposed are $10,291,000, which leaves an amount to be raised by taxation at $8,149,000. So our finance director, William Steglitz, put together some drivers that I wanted to go over briefly with everybody. The number one driver is capital improvements, of course. One of the largest pieces within this $903,000 increase is the paving budget, where we have an increase over last year of $422,000. But really that's because last year's budget was cut drastically to $228,000 in the second, just before the second referendum. Joe has, our Public Works Director, has some major projects planned, and I'll review that in the next slide. The debt service line and the salary and benefit increase, those are increases that are non-negotiable. Our fire departments, we have increases a total increase of approximately $83,000. This would encompass increases to the grants to the 5 departments of a total of $59,000. So that'll be an increase dispersed amongst the 5 departments. QV dispatch, so when you call 911, we do pay them a fee every year, and that has increased $5,100 for this fiscal year. Connecticut Water charges us for the fire hydrants that are in the Mill District, so that's the center of North Grosvenordale, and we are seeing a $4,500 increase from Connecticut Water. Again, non-negotiable. And the last thing is building and vehicle liability, as well as workers' compensation, is covered by the town of Thompson for all 5 departments, and we are seeing approximately a $13,500 increase for that line item in the fire department budget. Under Public Works, we're estimating we're going to be seeing a $70,000 increase in the Public Works department. Primarily, this is going to include repair and replacement of outdated guardrails where we switch to a flex beam guardrail. We're going to continue to remove dead and dying trees throughout the town. Line striping throughout a lot of our roads in town, and painting of stop bars at intersections, that's a priority for this coming year, so that did increase that line item. We also have targeted drainage and culvert repair, specifically on Bonnet Ave and Wilsonville Road, and this is going to be in preparation for future road reclamation on those 2 roads. Under the ambulance service, we're expecting a $23,000 increase. One of the parts of this $23,000 is a $6,000 increase to the stipend that we provide to Thompson Hill Fire Department, and that is for the storage not the storage, but the use of the facility for housing the ambulance and the ambulance staff for Putnam EMS. The Paramedic Intercept program through NECOG and KB Ambulance is seeing an increase this year of $14,080. So when it comes to life-saving measures like these in this line item, it's also a non-negotiable. In the other section, it's $41,000 that we're seeing an increase in our budget. This is dispersed amongst 40 departments, 40 line items within the town budget. The highest driver, the largest driver, is Northeast District Department of Health, and that is a $7,400 increase. Again, it's a state mandated program that we have to have a Department of Health in town, and that's also a non-negotiable. So these, for fiscal year 2025, are our capital request. The big lift is paving, as I stated earlier. Spicer Road, Stawicki Road, and a section of Porter Plain is planned for full reclamation. This is at a cost of roughly $800,000. Additionally, in paving, we're going to be doing a lot of in-house road repair. Some of the repairs is due to the winter and the rain and flooding that we've had this winter. Roads that we didn't anticipate having to repair, we're going to have to repair this year. So that's going to be done in-house. Under the transfer station department, we are requesting a loader again. We have requested this loader for the last 2 years. This year, that piece of equipment received $20,000 in mechanical repairs. The question will be, do we continue to make these repairs for another year? Or the question that the Board of Finance will have to decide is, do we continue to make repairs like this for another year and push out the purchase 1 more year? We know in doing that, the cost of the loader and the cost of a lot of things will increase. Every single year that we wait and that we push something off, the prices increase, but the obligation and the need doesn't go away. So that's something to keep in mind as you're going to the the polls to vote at referendum. The more we push things off, the more things will cost later. The need definitely doesn't go away. Let's see, repair fund contributions is actually for town-owned property repair fund. This is a fund that can be leveraged for grant opportunities for projects such as the roof at the Public Works Department. Or one key repair that we're planning to make, hopefully within this year, is the removal and replacement of the underground oil tank at the Library Community Center. It's very important. This is a 30-year underground. It's been in the ground for 30 years. It's time. It has to come out. So within this repair fund, we are requesting $100,000 be put into the repair fund. And again, that's specifically earmarked to those two projects, the roof at the Highway Department and the removal and replacement of the underground storage tank. Riverside Park lights replacement, the Board of Selectmen did decide to keep that in the budget. It's an important aspect of Riverside Park, as many groups do evening games, and we want to make sure that that park is accessible in the evening. The library has requested $15,225 for both library computers and the security gate replacement. And then, of course, the last two items, a revaluation. That's something that we put aside every year, and this will be in anticipation of the 2029 revaluation of properties within town. And then the Little League has made a request for $12,000 this year, and that will be for I believe the rebuilding of another field. Last year they did one, and this year there will be a second field that they'd like to fix. And that's really it. So,
Okay, thank you very much, Amy.
all right, thank you.
Again, I'll open up to the board. Anything? Nikki? Steve? Bob? Rob?
I'm good, thank you.
No, nothing here. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Citizens, does any citizen have a question that they'd like to ask at this time? All right, if none, then we'll just say that this Board of Finance will be meeting the next 3 Thursdays, I think, at the town hall, at 6 o'clock, I think it is. 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. For those that want to attend, where they can have questions, ask questions, and we'll get the answers for. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank everybody who prepared these very informative papers for us. Thank the Board of Education for the great job they did. Amy and your staff also for putting together a nice plan. It was refreshing to see it was condensed a little bit over all the other years that we stayed for 3 hours. So I thank everybody for making that effort to make it a little easier for us. So other than that, I may have a motion to adjourn. So moved. Dave?
Second.
Second, Nikki. All in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
right. Thank you very much for coming out tonight.